Good evening and welcome to Talk of the Neighborhoods. I'm Joe Hesiler, your host, coming to you from the BNN Live studios, Eggleston Square, Jamaica Plain, where tonight on the Boston Neighborhood Network, well, we'll talk politics as is our usual one tonight in two parts. First up tonight, the view from City Hall, and the latest there, of course, since the new council's been sworn in, and of course a new mayor as well. Joining me tonight, a woman who's accustomed to making some history. For the second time running, she topped the at-large city council ticket. I'm talking, of course, Ayanna Pressley. She has some very interesting new initiatives she's working on, including Raise Your Voice, a call to arms against sexual violence and sexual harassment. Then we shift gears to county politics, and in a bit of a preview of this fall's primary election, a man who's made some history himself. He's back in town and running for office. Again, we're talking Felix D. Arroyo, former Boston City Councilor, the first Latino ever elected there, and he's running for Register of Probate this year. We'll find out what's behind his bid. All that and more tonight on Talk of the Neighborhood. I'm Joe Hesiler, your host. Tonight, a two-part show, and first up tonight, one of my favorite guests from Boston City Hall this past year. Yet again, she topped the ticket in the at-large city council race with a big field as well, and she's making some waves up at Boston City Hall, talking about some things that many people haven't mentioned there for years: sexual violence, sexual harassment, and many, many more topics. And I'm pleased to have joining me City Councilor at Large Ayanna Pressley. Thanks so much for coming in.
I'm thrilled to be back.
Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, congratulations on your re-election. We haven't seen you
so
since. A very impressive showing. And
well, I see you in the neighborhoods, but I haven't been here.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, tell us about this your forum here, because this is really something different. And
Thank you.
know, most people, yes, everybody is familiar, and many people uncomfortable with the whole notion of sexual harassment, sexual violence. I know you experienced it yourself, but what you're doing here is shining a bright light on it.
Yes, absolutely.
What made you decide to?
Well, the impetus of this, you may recall a year ago, there were a number of high-profile reported sexual assaults. South Boston immediately comes to mind.
Sure.
And the same, happened this year as well. And in the wake of that, in that this is usually the most underreported crime, because most perpetrators are not strangers. They are not strangers lurking behind bushes. They are people that you know. And so I really just wanted to make sure that we were supporting survivors, getting them on a pathway to healing through education and empowerment, and also just engaging the community in a ongoing conversation. I think it is very difficult for people to embrace, well, not embrace, but to consider that someone they love could be violated in such a way. But it's even harder to consider that someone you love could violate someone in such a way. And since I joined the council, I've felt an obligation as a survivor, and at the time as the only woman on the body, to make sure that we introduce into the discourse not only street violence, when we're talking about violence, youth and street violence, but all forms of violence, domestic violence, sexual assault, and really demonstrate a commitment to breaking the cycle of violence. Violence begets violence. And in order for us to really combat it, we have to be willing to have a community conversation and dialogue, and not only in the wake of headlines. Otherwise, we won't really make meaningful headway. So this will be the second annual Raise Your Voice. It's a day of empowerment for survivors of sexual violence and our allies. Last year, we had 100 women from neighborhoods throughout the city. Wow. It was incredibly powerful. There were survivors, and it wasn't exclusively women, I should say. Okay. So 100 residents from throughout the city who many disclosed for the first time that they were survivors. So this will be the second annual one, Saturday, April 26th at the Cabral Center at Northeastern University. And we hope that people will come and be a part of this really important conversation.
It's not something, though, that a lot of people talk about or are comfortable talking about. And I can only Well, I can't imagine. But for people to get up, and I know you yourself have talked about your own experiences. How difficult is that? And,
it takes tremendous, I am very inspired and very humbled. I have to tell you, there is not a room that I am in. I'm an at-large counselor. I represent the entire city, all 22 neighborhoods, and every day someone pulls me aside to disclose that they are a survivor, and I'm inspired by their courage. And I've always maintained that when it comes to social change, when it comes to policy making, what moves the needle is not statistics. What moves the needle are stories. And so this is about creating a space where people can feel safe, they can share their stories, and really transition from a place of isolation and shame to a place of community. Transition from a place of despair to a place of hope. Transition from a place of victim to a place of survivor. The number of husbands who came and said, my wife is a survivor, her trauma is like the third person in our marriage, I don't know how to support her. We want to break the cycle.
Right.
So there'll be workshops throughout the day from 9:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. There'll be conversations with the entire community of people that do come together that day. But I'm really encouraging people to come out and be a part of this conversation. Make sure that when we talk about ending violence, that we are naming all forms.
Well, and of course, yeah, you hate to say it, but it's kind of part of our culture in many ways.
Absolutely.
And I won't say just, but you know, take your pick. You know, video games, television shows.
Absolutely.
You know, everything. And how do you attack that? And
I do believe that the strength of advocacy that I've really aimed to bring since I joined the council is just to name it. I mean, you'd be surprised just the power of that.
I was going to say, a lot of people don't want to talk about it. They
Well,
just,
but
they like, you know.
it makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything controversial about talking about this. The only controversial thing would be to do nothing. And in the name of progress, I'm willing to make people uncomfortable. Because again, I'm not anywhere, a classroom, a community meeting, a church, where someone does not pull me to the side, disclose that they are a survivor. And I will continue to fight as a policymaker for a greater investment in those education, prevention, and intervention services, and trauma supports in the aftermath and in the wake of domestic violence, sexual assault, surviving family members of homicide victims, and also the marathon bombing. Trauma is something that I've been working in for a long time, and we need more psychological first aid.
Do we have the supports in place in the city?
We
in
need
your
more.
Mind? I mean,
we need more. What we have is I'm very grateful that we have a mayor who has named trauma, who has a commitment to invest in trauma support services in a real way, but we have to be committed to doing that. When I think of the marathon in particular, it was a trauma trigger for immigrants who have fled war-torn countries, veterans, of conflicts abroad. Anyone who suffered a traumatic event in their life, it was a trauma trigger. So I want to make sure that we have an investment in a citywide trauma response, coordinated effort, those services, that psychological first aid, which is so critical to getting people on a pathway to healing, and also breaking cycles of violence.
Well, and of course, that brings us kind of full circle, because of course, coming up is the mayor just unveiled his budget, and there is some increases, but there's also some layoffs in there, and some of those layoffs are, and I'm not sure there would be the source of providing those supports to trauma, whatever, but there's cuts to the Boston Public Health Commission, and of course, there's not, as always, there's not enough money to do all the things. And I'm not raising that to spot them or to spot the mayor or whatever, but how difficult is it to kind of gather those resources and kind of...
Well, it's very challenging, particularly as we continue to lose revenue due to cuts on the federal and state level. We really feel the impact and bear the brunt of that in our municipalities, and Boston is no exception to that. I am very encouraged by my first read of the budget. We're going to now be having a series of hearings, and I'll ask a number of questions, and I'll continue to advocate for those things that I always have, which is an investment in those services that support the development and advancement of women and girls, also the stabilization of individuals and families, and the holistic health of community. So those are the things that I'll continue to fight for. How do we break cycles of poverty? How do we break cycles of violence? And how do we reduce trauma in our communities? Because whether you're personally impacted or not, we're all affected. And so one of the chief things that I've been pushing to address all of those is economic development. If we can eradicate poverty, we can address many of these social ills, which are the manifestations. So have me back on so I can talk about liquor license reform. Liquor license reform. I got to talk about that, Joe.
We got some. But
Okay.
I want to ask you first about this, because I know that's a cause near and dear to you as well. But how is this mayor doing? He kind of came into office promising a new day, so to speak. I mean, I remember that first day. You came right down to the council, and I know that's a ceremonial thing, but he seemed genuine in saying he really wanted to kind of partner up with you folks.
Yes.
And what a pleasant thought and surprise in some ways. But is that proving to be true? Are you still feeling?
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
And I'll say in particular for the set of issues that I've championed since I joined that council, issues like human trafficking, sexual violence, trauma. This is a mayor who has named these issues, has been a wonderful partner in advocating for a greater investment to combat those things. He's not unwilling to make people uncomfortable. He's been very accessible, very responsive, and a true partner. Our White Ribbon Day that we just had, which is about men and the role that they can play in ending the cycle of violence against women. The mayor came, he took the pledge. They did an excellent job at encouraging all municipal employees to participate. I just remember starting that 4 years ago and just standing in the lobby of City Hall with the executive director of the Boston Women's Commission and Councilor Jackson, just a handful of us passing out white ribbons as people came in, and to see this culminating
From
event
then
to now with standing room only in the council chambers. And that's just one commitment. His commitment around human trafficking, an issue that I've been working on for quite some time. When he came to City Hall, the first thing he said is, I know you care about this issue. I want to work with you on this and figure out how we can reduce the demand. It is a new day. I'm encouraged, by the spirit of partnership. That doesn't mean we're going to agree on everything.
Well, I was going to say.
That doesn't mean we're going to agree on
Does
everything.
he get a pass this first year? Does he get a bit of a honeymoon with the budget? I know in years past the council has mixed it up with the mayor, although we eventually, of course, come to agreement. But does he get a little bit of a pass this year?
Oh no, and he wouldn't want one. He wouldn't want one, and there's no way he could get a pass. I mean, these are very big shoes. Mayor Menino, served us ably, made great sacrifice, and provided great service, and made so many contributions to this city. So he's certainly not going to get a pass. But I do believe that people are, given the very big shoes of Tom Menino, that they're giving Marty Walsh the space with which to forge his own path and his own identity. And he's been doing a great job, and I look forward to a future collaboration and partnership with him.
Well, the headlines today, he's talking about giving John Rosenthal, who's working on developing the area over the Pike next to Fenway Park, a big tax break. How do you think that will go over? And I know he goes to the Boston Redevelopment Authority, but
yes, that's not one that goes to the city council. So,
but in generally speaking, do you think that's because you were talking about economic development and how important that is? Those types of things, councilors supportive in general of making the kinds of.
It's a case-by-case scenario. I don't. I would not summarily grant anyone anything without transparency and a clear understanding of what the community benefits would be. But for me, my focus around economic development is specifically around our neighborhoods and specifically about restaurants and making
Yes.
it easier for them.
Well, I talk about
So-
making waves because, of course, that requires state legislative approval, state approval.
Well, we have great momentum.
yes,
and
and
Marty Walsh has proved a tremendous partner in that
Has he?
regard as
Yeah.
well. He pledged when he was a candidate
Yeah.
that he would help to shepherd that legislation and see that become law.
And tell our viewers again, it would increase the number of
So what my-
licenses.
exactly. So I've spent 2 years working to improve the process whereby neighborhood restaurants are able to procure liquor licenses, very critical to their profit margin and the jobs that we so sorely need. I just think restaurants are transformative in building community and building wealth. The current law is over 100 years old. It's hurting small businesses, hurting our neighborhoods. I want control returned to the city, and I would like to lift the cap, thereby making more licenses available, driving the cost down. And I want to eliminate the transfer of licenses out of empowerment zone, urban renewal, and transit-oriented development because we have a real disparity issue. You can't have a healthy community without a thriving main streets. Neighborhood restaurants play a critical role in that. And the current situation has created a black market and also huge disparities. So you have a density and saturation, or you have a complete
dearth.
Absolutely. You know, Mattapan Square is a perfect example. 9 liquor licenses, 6 are for packaged liquor stores, and then you have the North End, 99 liquor licenses. Roxbury with 26.
So what would
Back
this
Bay,
do? How would it
154.
increase, and how would you allocate? How would this work?
Well, so the first thing is to lift the cap. There's not an approximate number, it's just to lift the cap, making more available to drive the cost down. Because the current cap is really just an arbitrary one.
Right.
Return control to the city because we know best how to economically revitalize our neighborhoods. And so the mayor would have full authority to appoint that licensing board. The council would also vote. So there would be an extra layer of oversight there. And then, you know, as I said, eliminating the transfer of licenses to really address the disparity issue in those neighborhoods that have traditionally been economically disenfranchised and marginalized. So where we are right now is my home rule petition passed the city council by 12-1 vote. Tom Menino, I'm very grateful, one of his last acts as mayor was to sign my home rule. We just went before the licensure committee at the State House. And we'll know by June 3rd if it will be favorably reported out of committee and go to the House for a vote.
Well, and it's sometimes I know you know this. It takes years as a veteran of the whole legislative process, but
that's okay. I'm in it for the long haul. We want to get it right.
well, and that raises an interesting point because a lot of people think you have a great future, and that. Whether you yourself will run for a higher office at some point. I have to tell you, many people said they wished you had run for mayor. And did you look at that? And how do you respond to that? How do you, I know you kind of take it as it comes, and I think that's probably the right attitude, but
well,
it never hurts to plan ahead either, you know.
Oh, Joe. Listen, I am very humbled and honored to be in the position that I am currently. I get to actualize my values every day. I've brought a strength of advocacy and a perspective to that council and to this city that I believe did not previously exist. I feel a great obligation and responsibility to that agenda. I think I have a tremendous opportunity with the new administration, a new council, to lead that agenda and to enlist partners in advancing a progressive agenda dedicated to breaking cycles of poverty and violence and reducing trauma in our communities. I let the rest of that, you know, those things will shake out.
Do you ever think of it though? You ever consider it? I mean, you should if you don't.
Of course, and in large part I consider it because what the public has entrusted me, the responsibility that they've entrusted me with, and when they come to me and ask me to consider these things, I take it very seriously. I don't enter into any decision lightly, and especially not one that has to do with the well-being and the livelihood of the great residents of this city. So we'll see what the future holds.
You have a respectable lot of. Now we've got just a minute or so left.
Yes.
Now you ultimately decided to run for council president.
Yes, I did.
And of course, you know how let's see, 13 voters. You know that's a tough thing, and you weren't successful. But maybe that wasn't the point. I mean, you always run to win, but
Absolutely.
Were you making some point in that process? Because of course, you know, people line up their votes in advance, and you know how it goes.
I ran because I felt that, you know, as someone who's representing an entire city, that I certainly could represent a 13-member body, that I had had successes in finding and reaching compromise in the best interest of the residents of the city of Boston, and setting a tone and bringing a different perspective and a brand of leadership. And I felt that I could do that as council president. And although we were not successful in the textbook sort of, you know, literal definition, I thought it was important. And I feel very good about the statement that was made and that I stood up for that.
You gave a great speech. But now you weren't successful this time. Maybe next time, who knows? But
Joe, get your crystal ball out. You've got a lot of predictions. We'll see.
I don't know.
You're seasoned. You've been at this a long time.
So well lately, but you know, I know you have a great future in the city. I want to thank you for coming in and share us tonight.
Always a pleasure, Joe.
Again,
thank you so
the event
much.
is Raise Your Voice.
Yes, April
It is
26th.
Saturday, April 26th at the Cabral Center at Northeastern University. That's an all-day thing, or starting at?
It's 9:30 to 12:30.
9:30 to 12:30.
Yes.
A
And you
great
can get
event.
more information at my office. So
Great.
give us
Very
a call.
good. Again, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure,
Ayanna
Joe.
Pressley,
Thank you.
at-large Boston City Councilor. When we return, we'll talk with a former at-large city councilor who's making a return to the city and electoral politics. We're talking about Felix D. Arroyo, of course, the father of the another former councilor. Let's see, how do we keep those
Quite
straight?
the legacy.
And now running for Suffolk County Register. I'm Joe Hesiler, your host, and on the second half, still all politics, and this a preview perhaps of one of the more interesting races on this fall's primary ballot. That is, believe it or not, the race for Suffolk County Register Probate. It has drawn 5 candidates so far. Of course, the filing deadline is coming up, but one of those is a man you'll remember well, a familiar face, serving on making some history, serving on the Boston City Council. The last time I saw him, he was getting on a plane to Uruguay, but he's back, and he's back in action, I should say. Felix D. Arroyo, nice to have you here.
Oh, delighted to be here and to be back, actually.
Thanks
you know?
so much for coming in. Well,
Thank you.
Well, now, some people thought you were retired.
I was retired, but you know, I keep thinking about what am I going to do? I really love Boston. I'm in Uruguay. Uruguay is a beautiful country, and it's relaxing. But I'm action, and I still have life in me. I want to be part of the action of the service, of the public service, which is what I have done all my life. So I saw an opportunity to come back in this position. Actually, I came and helped my son, who was running for mayor, to run, and a lot of people were telling me, people that I know from the past, oh, Felix, why don't you come back? What are you doing down there? And then when I went back, I keep thinking, I have so many friends in Boston. This is actually my city. It's not time for me to retire, to go back. And then I stayed to help Marty Walsh finish his career. And I said, I like this. I want to continue my service. If there is an opportunity, I'll do it. And then I learned that in September, there is this position on the ballot. Register of Probate and Family Court. Don't leave the family out.
That's right, don't want to leave that out.
Because that's the part that, that is more intriguing to me and more important. See, I had been an elected officer, but I also have been an administrative officer in many places, in community agencies, in the city, and in the state level.
Yeah.
So I understand how to manage an office with many people that do public service and how to help them be part of a change that improve the ability to serve in a better way. That's what I want to do. This particular position combines both, and it deals with families in a very distressed moment. That go from wills, which is what probate imply, lack of wills many times, that family person die and not necessarily have a will done. What do you do? How do you handle that? In which way the parts can come together and work it out? not necessarily through lawyers. They can do through mediation, and this office can provide that. The same with the divorce, the same with child support, the same with adoptions. One thing that Richard Ayanna, who was in that position for many years,
former Boston City Councilor as well,
was able to do was to develop little pamphlets that explain to each one of those functions what can you expect, what are your rights, how does the court function with it, how do you arrange for your case, all that kind of things in a little leaflet. But they are not in community agencies. I want to review that because they are all and they lost change constantly, and bring them to the community agencies. Not only that, there is a possibility of doing it in languages of people who are here who need that service, because we have a lot of groups in the communities that come from different countries. And so they are not familiar with our courts. They are not familiar with the language, and yet they are going to have to face cases.
Well, you've speaking of languages and breaking down barriers, you were the first Latino elected to the Boston City Council. If you were elected, I guess you might be the first Latino elected to certainly
That's true.
Actually, to that office.
It's sort of the way in which I have worked all the time. The first time that I ran was for school committee when it was elected,
yes.
And there was never a person of color at large in the school committee. That year, 1980, we worked with John O'Brien, which many people will remember, and Jim McGuire, and we worked together to make an inclusive process of participation for everyone. And I learned a lot, and I helped people in my community in particular who didn't know what the school committee was, or how do you get elected to that, or what was the importance of decisions that they make, and understand that and participate in that. Then I worked in the school committee when it was appointed, and I was able to do a lot of things that the community in general provided access to them. We don't get into the details because it's a lot. But then after that, run for city council, like you said, and become the first Latino, thanks to the people who trusted me. What I feel at this point is that the registrars, which actually are elected in the 1600, when we still have the governor of the state appointed by the British Crown, this position was elected.
That's when they created these. Well, now, but you have to admit, a lot of people don't know, and it's a rather obscure office.
It is.
And it holds a lot of significance, as you mentioned, a lot of importance.
16,000 cases the last year, and that multiplied by 2 because it's family issues, plus 2 or 3 children each.
How do you raise this above, get it on people's radar screens? Because a lot of people don't even know it's on the ballot. Now, most people are focused on, and will be focused on, the Democratic primary for governor. Will they forget Felix Arroyo?
Joe, that's when you and the media come. You have given me an opportunity to explain the importance of this office, because it affects so many people. This is the county office, which include Winthrop, Revere, Chelsea, and Boston, the whole towns. Right. And as I told you, 16,000 cases. That means through that office, over 30,000 people went through. They come looking for information. Many people think that the first thing they have to do if they face a divorce or adoption or child support or things of that sort is get a lawyer. No, get the appropriate information, because information is power. Who can provide it? This particular office. Get the opportunity to have a mediation, which allows you to deal with the case with the other person involved, with a person, an intermediate person that is professional, that allow you to come to an agreement. And if you don't come to an agreement, to come close to one. If you come to an agreement, the judge will love that, because what they have to do is confirm it.
Well, and of course you have the skills, but to get there you have to be elected. Do you have the organization that to get elected? There is technically an incumbent who was elected to fill the seat. She's currently, I think, still suspended, but she is running for re-election, and some others as well. How do you put together an organization for a seat like this and get people's attention? What's your strategy?
At this point, we have a lot of volunteers helping us getting the signatures, which the period will be ending in April 30. If people want to get involved with our campaign, they just can visit votefelix.com, and there will be opportunities to understand the process, to understand the position, to participate if they want, and even to donate if they want to do it in a safe way. So votefelix.com is already in place. And there is a phone that they can call at.
And I think
it's
I've
right
got
there.
it here. Let's see if we can, oh yeah, it's 857-400-8683. Now, you mentioned your son's campaign. Did that get the juices flowing again?
Well, you can see I'm energetic about it. I'm really enthusiastic about it. It's an opportunity that if I get it, will allow me to do some changes that will be permanent, and I will feel I give something back to the city. I was able to facilitate it, to make sure that people that go there are treated with respect and dignity, that they get the information they really need. We need also to update their website, so the forms are in different, the instructions for the form are in different languages, that people have the forms ready when they go to the office. Yes, I'm campaigning, and I'm campaigning across the 4 cities. And anybody who wants to join us, we gladly will welcome them. Again, votefelix.com will be a way to get in contact with us and to help us do the change that is needed in this office.
I want to ask you about this because I remember when you were leaving to go down to South America. What did that experience teach you about this?
Well, you know, one of the interesting things about Uruguay in particular, not all Latin America, is that Uruguay and some other countries went through a period of 10 years or so of dictatorship, military dictatorship.
Yeah.
Previous to that, Uruguay was called the Switzerland of America because of the way in which they deal with their society. Once they were able to get rid of that dictatorship, there is a democracy that you cannot imagine. At this point, they have determined that investing in children is their key to the future. So you know what they did, and it's the only country who had done that? Each child that go to public school have a computer that the state provide. Not only that, there is curriculum for that, and every park in Uruguay have Wi-Fi, so children can do their assignments in their computer after school and in weekends. Now, if Uruguay can do that, why can't we?
Well, that's an interesting thought,
Yes.
and you should talk to your friend Marty Walsh about that. I don't know if we're ready for that.
I will work with anybody in these issues because they affect families and they affect children, which is what I have been doing all my life in my participation in politics. And I'm not going to deviate from that in this one.
Well, when you came back, and what do you make of the city now under the leadership of Marty Walsh?
I think it is a new era. It's a new opportunity for Boston to move forward. And what I like about Marty is that he believes in the workers, and the workers are the ones who construct the society. You cannot have a society that progress and develop itself if you don't take care of the workers of that society. And Marty comes from that background. He comes from a family that was construction workers. He grew up, his leadership actually, in the construction field. And that's how he became a representative, and that's how he became a mayor. I think that Marty represents a future for the whole city. He mentioned very much inclusiveness, and he's working toward that. We can see it in his cabinet. And of course, it takes time to go down the whole system, but we will see it. And I have a lot of trust in him and hope that his new mayorship will really make a positive difference for all of us.
Will he, do you expect him to help you? Your son endorsed him in the final. Will he help you in your race, do you think?
The mayor is not endorsing anybody at this point. There are 20 races. You have to, there is a primary that includes governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, auditor, attorney general, treasurer, sheriff, and then registrars of different kinds. He's supportive of me running, and he mentioned my name whenever I'm present to the people, so they know that I'm a candidate at this stage and I'm interested in coming back. So I really appreciate that. But for the mayor to make an endorsement at this point will mean that there are 20 other races with
saying,
at
"Hey, what
least
about
4
me?"
exactly. So I understand it's wise
forget
for him.
feelings, what about me?
It's wise for him not to get so involved at this point in the beginning of his
And what about your
administration.
son? Will he be helping you? Of
He's
course,
supporting me, of course.
He ran a great race for
The
mayor.
first
so-
people that I talk to, of course, is the family, all my children, and Felix was not an exception. And they are enthusiastic about it. They're enthusiastic because they want to see me active, and they feel.
Well, and they knew they'd keep you
Yes.
back here
Yes.
then, too.
Definitely, and they feel they feel that rejuvenates me. That is something that I really want to do. So they are very supportive.
Well, it should be a very interesting one. It's going to be a great election season, and as always, we'll be covering it here on BNN TV and Talk of the Neighborhoods. For a race farther down the ballot, this could prove very interesting because now I hate to tell you this, the incumbent there, she's pretty feisty. Do you expect to have some debates?
I welcome any debate that there is for this position with all the candidates, including her, and she have an advantage of any of other candidate because she's the incumbent. So that will be under her name when people go to the ballot.
And you weren't intimidated by that in deciding to run?
I understand that is a big factor in her benefit, of course, but I want to compensate that by working hard for it, by letting people know why it is an important office, and by making people understand that I have the skills and the experience to actually bring the kind of change that people expect in an office that should be serving the people with respect and dignity.
Well, again, Felix D. Arroyo, he's back in town. He's been back, but now running for office as Suffolk County Register of Probate. That is a Democratic primary.
Yes, it is.
So far, 5 in the race that
Yes.
I'm aware of. One of the races we'll be following very closely in the weeks ahead. As you bring your expertise, because of course you've been there, done this, what's the biggest advantage that you have going into this?
Well, it's my record. It's the feeling that I get when people talk to me that they feel that I did an honest service for the city, that I deal with everybody who came to me with respect, and I did everything I could to help everyone that needed it, and that I seriously believe in the democratic process that we have and embrace it wholeheartedly. So I think that is what I bring, and the desire to really leave something better as part of a legacy from my participation in city and state and county government.
Well, you've done a lot over the years, and it was so nice of you to come in and talk to us again. Felix
Thank you
D.
for
Arroyo.
having me. I appreciate it very much.
Nice to see you back
Thank you.
in town. Again, just one of the races we'll be following as we enter the primary season, and it's a very busy season, as we mentioned, not the least of which is, of course, the gubernatorial primary that's taking place. You're watching Talk of the Neighborhoods here on the Boston Neighborhood Network. We're here tonight and every Monday night at the same time. We won't be back next week. Of course, that's Patriots Day weekend. We want to wish you all a safe holiday weekend. Also want to give a special shout out to my friend Michael LaRocca, who's here tonight in the audience joining us. Thanks for watching. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.